Today is June 23rd, and this weekend, I have to say it's been hard to not get distracted with United States bombing Iran. I just wanted to make a statement about it because it has caused me a lot of anxiety on what's happening in the world, and I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that and not just go about my business as usual because, well, for me, it's been personally hard to go about business as usual with the state of our world. I've been watching a lot of what's going on outside of the US. Of course, I've been watching for student loan updates as well. Today's video, I want to talk about what the Trump administration has done to move borrower defense along because applications have not been processed since Trump took office. I want to address what the Secretary of Education has come out and said, as well as I want to talk about the borrower defense. No, I'm sorry, not borrower defense. The default response kit and a resource that we have to help borrowers in default. So those are the two items I'm going to talk about today, June 23rd. So first and foremost, let's dive into what is going on with borrower defense. It ultimately, let me just start with what my takeaway is. My takeaway ultimately is if you qualify for borrower defense because you went to a Sweet versus Cardona school, the 100+ schools on the borrower defense list, you have an even greater chance of qualifying to go ahead and apply today. It is not too late to apply. So let me start with the TDLR of the point of what I'm going to update now. Then I'm going to go to the articles I've been reading around the case. So basically what happened when Trump came into office and the Supreme Court was ruling on the borrower defense case, discharge case, when Trump took office, basically the Secretary of Education said, let us pause this case because we want to see if we even agree with the Biden administration. Do we agree on continuing to fight the case for borrower defense for borrowers? So basically, what is borrower defense? Borrower defense is basically an application process for those who went to schools that were essentially defrauded or closed, or they essentially were mostly for-profits, did not get the value out of their education, have a ton of debt from it. So the lawsuit is called Department of Ed versus Career Colleges and Schools of Texas. That's the main dispute. It started in 2022, and it basically, the lawsuit helps outline the ways that colleges engaged in misconduct, okay? So misconduct includes aggressive recruiting tactics, lying about the financial aid possibility, lying about the career and job outcomes, as well as educational outcomes, as well as also lying about the transferability of credits, about the value of the education, about access to specific types of skills that you would get that were just simply untrue, okay? That's essentially the base of our borrower defense claims, and the application is 25 pages long, so it's a pretty arduous one. It's not a check-the-box application. It is, you have to generate responses based on what you're claiming the school has done to you, and there's been a huge influx of complaints that have been adding significant backlog at the Department of Education for discharge, okay? Under the rules known as borrower defense for loan discharge, borrowers can challenge their loans from schools that have committed this misconduct I'm telling you about. And essentially, the rule also allows loans to be discharged if borrowers' schools closed while they were enrolled, or they withdrew and the school closed within 180 days. The Federal Appeals Court struck down the 2022 ruling and made it even harder for borrowers in the borrower defense discharge case. However, the Biden administration had asked the Supreme Court to overturn the appeals court decision, and they agreed in January to take up oral arguments, and that is what was put on pause by the Trump administration. So now they are going to take up these oral arguments. The court is supposed to respond by the end of June, which is when the court session ends. So yet to be determined what that response looks like, but I did want to provide that update. But in the meanwhile, if you went to one of the 100 plus schools on the Sweet versus Cardona list, I would encourage you to apply. I would certainly encourage you to apply because essentially, if they're taking applications and they decide, hey, we're going to stop taking applications, they generally allow everybody who has already applied to be considered. So if you've attended this 100 plus schools, if you don't know what the 100 plus schools are, if you attended an online program, we will list below in the description the list of schools. You have to enter your email. We'll send you the list. As well as we will list the link with pro tips on how to apply to bar defense. And we will also list our link for a free consult if you qualify to bar defense. Now let's move on to the next topic, which is the default response kit. So I created an entire resource blog around how lenders specifically can help borrowers who are in default. I want to go over, it's a one-pager default response guide. We will link it here. Well, we'll link first to the blog that has the guide to the guide to share this default response kit. We will link that. And now I'm going to go over the options if you find yourself working with tons of borrowers in default. Okay, so the Biden-era Fresh Start program that allowed people to essentially do a very simple application and get out of default has already ended. Okay, so we are back to the legislated way to get out of default. And what is the legislated way to get out of default? There are three methods. The third one is almost like not an option for, I'd say, 99% of people. But the first two options are consolidate your qualified direct loans that are not already consolidated. For example, if you already have all direct consolidated loan, you've already gone into and now have a direct consolidated loan, it would be hard for you to consolidate again. Or the second method is to go through rehabilitation, okay? And then I'm going to describe what each one of these are. And then the third method is to pay your loans off in full, which that's what I said, that very few people can actually afford to do that. So let's talk about the first method, student loan consolidation. What are the pros and cons? The pros of consolidating your student loans is that it goes much quicker than rehabilitation. So if you're trying to buy a house and you just need to get your loans into good standing, the process is 2 to 3 months. You can get your loans out of default. That's the pro. The con is that the late payments that led you to default, the default will not be taken off of your credit. Therefore, you will have credit hits relative to rehabilitation, which does take the default off your record and take your actions preceding default off of your credit. So it allows you to rehabilitate your credit, basically. The consolidation process is a couple sets of paperwork because it's a consolidation app plus the income-driven repayment application. Okay, so a couple sets of paperwork. LoanSense does that paperwork for consolidation as well as help guide you on the income-driven repayment plan. It's a much more it's a less subjective way to get out of default because you're getting out of default using an income-driven plan. Income-driven plans follow very specific federal loan programs, which we can help you predict the payment very accurately. That's the pro of consolidation. Now, let me describe what rehabilitation is. Rehabilitation is a little more subjective because it requires you to report some of your income and expenses. And it's more subjective because based on how you fill it out, then the collector will decide what your payment's going to be. Okay. I say it's more subjective because I've personally, before we started doing borrower defense, I personally helped borrowers get out of default on the rehabilitation pathway. And when they call the collection agents, it's very scripted with tons of legalese. When you ask a question, they don't know how to respond to it. Like they don't even know what they're saying themselves. It's super formulaic. They ask you, what is your rent or mortgage? They ask you all these things. And if you're not prepared to respond and you're just kind of making numbers up on the spot to get it done, you're probably going to put yourself in a really bad spot. And the rehabilitation process, there's a few pros, like I've already mentioned. It rehabilitates your credit. You make 9 months of payments based on this worksheet of income and expenses. So that could be good for some, bad for others. If you're really low income or you have multiple dependents and you're a single income family, that's probably going to be great for you. But if you are middle to high earning, it's probably going to be a bad route for you. So I'd be very careful how you fill out the rehabilitation forms. But again, it takes it off your credit. It's a one-time opportunity. The cons are that it takes 9 months before you can enroll into an income-driven plan. And to get the correct documentation for mortgage close will take 9 months because you have to, the mortgage close documentation requires you to be in a plan with at least 12 months of payments. Some underwriters will overlook that and allow you to use the rehabilitation docs, but that's hit or miss. So I just want to be transparent about that from what we've seen. It's hit or miss. So again, rehabilitation is more subjective, less formulaic than a consolidation, but it does remove the default. For anybody who, here's another thing. If you're trying to close on a mortgage in default, if you're trying to go for an FHA loan, it's very important you get out of default. If you're trying to go for a conventional loan and they're not as strict about loans in default, as long as your credit hasn't been hit too bad, you might even be able to close on a mortgage with your student loans in the process of defaulting. I can't promise. I'm just saying from what we've seen, there are some bars with extremely high credit. Their credit has only been hit by 50, 60 points, and they could still close on a mortgage because they were not going for an FHA mortgage, okay, or VA or something like that. They're still able to close, okay? Obviously, the pros and the cons of the last option. Let's say you're defaulting and your balance is like $3,000 and you can afford to pay it off. Okay, pay it off, get it off your credit, that's great. But most people defaulting have more than $1,000 or $2,000 of debt and have a hard time paying off the entire balance. So obviously the pros are you're done, you get it off your credit, you are done paying your loans. That's the pro. The con is that most people can't afford it. Whatever you do to pay off your loans, you absolutely want to check that on your credit, your loans it's stated that your loans are paid in full. And you want to make sure with your servicer as well as studentaid.gov that your loans are truly paid in full, okay? I can't reiterate that enough because you just never know what gets documented in this servicing world. It's like the wild, wild west. So if you choose to pay your loans in full, make sure it's appropriately documented and that you have gotten credit for paying your loans in full. Again, if you're not quite sure what the best option is for you, you're in the process of buying a home, you're not in the process of buying a home, you want to work on saving for down payment and you don't want to buy a home for another year. Let's say you're not even thinking about buying a home, but you are one of these 10 million people that are in the process of default right now and you need help. Our bar defense link is also applicable for a getting out of default consult. It's a free consult. People ask me all the time, what do you pay for this consult? It's free. One of our advisors will answer your basic questions, see if we can help you. We are very honest. So if you come to us and we think you don't have a strong bar defense case, we will tell you you don't have a strong bar defense case. If we think we can't help you, we will tell you. We will not try to sell you a service that you should not be buying into. So again, the consult is literally the arc of the consult. Understand your situation, right? Assess whether you qualify for bar defense or your options for getting out of default, telling you what your next options are, and seeing if you want to take those options with us. If the answer is no, that's quite okay. We have tons of people to help. Either way, we hope that you got the education you needed in our free consult. We wish everybody the best. We want everybody to receive the best results, regardless of whether they work with us or not. And so we offer the free consult as a way for people to understand their options and make sure that what we can provide is right for you. So again, we're available. We provided the free consult link below. And the free consult link is good for both bar defense and getting out of default. We cannot wait to help more people succeed with their student loans. Comment, like, subscribe, and we are happy to answer any questions. And we love comments because they help us with new content ideas as well. Please share this information with others. So at the minimum, if you don't already use our service, because a lot of people do, at a minimum, please do share our content and subscribe to reach more people who could use the information. Thank you very much and have a great rest of the week.